Hi, Scorpio, Sun and Rising. Welcome to your December 2021 Astro Update. It's Rena here. Well, we have quite a few transits. You could say significant transits in December, and this being the last month of the year, it certainly seems like we're going out with a bang. We're having the last eclipse in Sag of this particular cycle, and this is coming off of a lunar eclipse in Taurus, the first one of the cycle that includes your sign, which is the opposite sign of Taurus. So you're going to get your own eclipses along with Taurus in 2022, but you got a taste of the of that. I call it intensity because anytime you come to the party, it's going to be intense. And that was with the lunar eclipse. And I'm actually recording this audio on the day of that lunar eclipse, November 19th. So in December, there's more stuff happening. On the first of the month, Neptune goes direct in its own sign of Pisces. Neptune has been in its own sign of Pisces for almost a decade. Pisces is a fellow water sign, and it inhabits your fifth house, which is a really fun place. It's the house of love, creativity, the business that you own, and did I say fun? Yeah. Well, when I say fun, it can be pleasure. Anything that you find pleasurable, hobbies can be this area as well. And so Neptune is a very imaginative influence. And maybe some of you Scorpios, whether the sun sign or the ascendant, have found yourself more creative in recent years because of this influence. And I think it was last June, Neptune went retrograde, and it does that every year, and it does stay retrograde for months at a time. So this is an outer planet. It travels very slowly. When Neptune goes retrograde in a particular house, you can feel disillusionment about the area of life that this represents. So since this is the house of love and love affairs, Neptune even being in this house altogether, Scorpio, may have been an influence that if you're single, for instance, you may have encountered more than one person who hasn't been very straight with you, who has maybe been deceptive, because that can be one of the more challenging aspects of Neptune. Another thing that may have happened is soulmate, you know what I mean? Somebody that you really feel is the one, or that you have some kind of karmic connection with. You know, Neptune rules the 12th house, and that can be about spiritual matters, karma, past lives. And so Neptune here can be extremely idealistic. But when it goes retrograde, the rose-colored glasses come off. So maybe you've had some kind of disillusionment about love, or at least questions. Well, now that Neptune is going direct, it can be a little bit more reassuring. You can find that sense of idealism coming back into your life in this area. And another way that this could have played out is if you are a burgeoning artist and maybe you started doubting yourself. Am I really good enough? Something happens, or this could be an internal thing, and you resolve it within yourself to say, yes, I am good enough. On the 4th, we have a solar eclipse at 12 degrees of Sagittarius. Sag is your second house of earned income, Scorpio, so that certainly can be very good for financial matters. However, because it's an eclipse, and then a solar eclipse is a powerful new moon, but because of the eclipse, it's more of a kind of in your face type of message that it's sending you. Um, it's funny because, sometimes I've had, direct hits with these eclipses or just something happening and it hasn't really manifested, but sometimes it has. And the reason I was kind of laughing is that, and it really isn't that funny, but in that Gemini eclipse that we had back in June, it was in my I think it was my second house, which is the house of earned income, and I had my bike stolen, and that's my main source of transportation, and Gemini, because it's ruled by Mercury, rules transportation. So that was a definite, and that was a solar eclipse. So things can happen in that, even the second house of possessions, that can be something that can come up for you. So I just wanted to put it out there, not to say that you're going to have one of your possessions stolen, but I'm giving you some kind of like ideas of the not so pleasant manifestations. And I think that happened like the day after the eclipse. So it was very much in that time frame. The best case scenario would be planting of a lot of seeds that have the potential for blossoming in 2022 as it pertains to income streams. Now, how you would make that happen, I don't know. Maybe just more opportunities for making money. This isn't the holiday season, so if you've taken on a second job, you might make connections through that, and that could last beyond this season. On the 13th, we have two transits to mention. We have Mars going into Sagittarius, into that second house, and we have Mercury going into Capricorn, which is your third house. So, as far as the Mars energy in the second house, because Mars is very active, it wants to just, and also I could say a little bit impatient. It wants to just get the show on the road. I want to make money. I want to just use my own energy to make money. So instead of just thinking about it, because Mercury has been in this sector and maybe you've been kind of brainstorming, now you put things into action. And so this can be hustling, working more than one job. This, like I said, this is before Christmas or before the holidays have arrived. So there are, going to be places that need somebody desperately, and you might just be doing that because you want to pick up some extra money, and it could lead to other things. You never know. On the same day, like I said, Mercury goes into that third house. Now, that could be dealing with things associated with selling. And also another angle of this is that in the third house, this is the house of the media, and Mercury is certainly associated with communication. So there may be like, and also, so teaching, learning, these are areas that are activated for you in mid-December. On the 18th, we have, and also another thing too is that the third house can be your siblings, so you, aunts and uncles, cousins, and this is, in that holiday time, so you might be, contacting your brothers and sisters, cousins, kind of like arranging plans, who knows. On the 18th, there's a full moon at 27 degrees of Gemini. And so this is the house that you rule, actually, Scorpio. This is the 8th house. Okay, well, full moon here can bring to light a situation with shared resources. Now, the 8th house that you rule is about shared resources, other people's money, inheritances. This is the house of death. So it is possible that you're dealing with a will, or that, with the full moon, it can be that somebody who has been ill is making their transition. And this is something that, what I would say about this is that it is not something that is necessarily, it's not happening on that day. I actually had an experience like that, and I think in my case, it was a lunar eclipse and not a full moon. Might have been just a full moon. But yeah, and in that situation, yeah, I had that happen, or somebody close to me passed away, and that's life, but it doesn't always happen that way when you have a full moon in the 8th house. It might be that you're finding out information about a will. So that could still involve somebody who has passed in recent months. This can also be an internal thing within yourself, because the 8th house is the shadow self. It's the unwanted parts of a person, the emotions that are very, very challenging, that sometimes fill people with shame, sometimes make people feel uncomfortable. Although I will say that a Scorpio person is not, I don't think a lot of Scorpio people give a damn whether or not somebody thinks that they're this or that, I really don't. And that's one of the reasons I like Scorpio people, because I think that they tend to be their own people. But, even a Scorpio person may feel uncomfortable with some of the things that have bothered them. And that's another thing too, just the psyche itself. So the full moon, this is a very, let me put it this way. This is great for shadow work, which is, what I'm just talking about. And I think psychotherapy is shadow work. And I mean, if you get a good therapist, somebody who's actually talking to you, challenging you, getting you to think for yourself and figure it out, those kinds of people can bring things out of you that need to be purged. And that's what this is ultimately about. On the 19th, Venus goes retrograde at 26 degrees of Capricorn. And so we're talking about that 3rd house. Venus in the 3rd. Well, I'm getting like this vibe about family members. And yes, it definitely could be siblings. It could be your brothers and sisters. But it could also be aunts and uncles, cousins, especially if you have cousins, for instance, or even aunts and uncles who are like either, with the cousins like your siblings, and with the aunts and uncles your parents. So if they kind of filled in those roles instead of your parents, then you may have a lot of interactions with these people. And there may be something that is not as harmonious as it was before. Venus in an area is about harmony, but when it's retrograding, that's being pulled back. And sometimes these things happen because there are other things happening. So again, I'm talking about like an inheritance situation. And it might not even be a formalized thing where there's a will. there might have been money promised, and people are claiming that they are the ones that should get it over somebody else. But yeah, I was saying when Mercury goes into that third house, Mercury can be contracts. The third house can be, these legal matters. I mean, not legal matters, but contracts. Mercury rules the third house, so it's kind of redundant in that sense. Venus in the third house can be anything that is connected to, if you're a writer, and the third house can be connected to writing and things like that, and that might be something that you are looking over, like a manuscript or something. Venus has this creative connection, and again with retrograde, just like with a Mercury retrograde, there's like reviewing, and with Venus it's about your values, but the third house has to do with the mind. And so I think about the concepts of what is important and what, because Venus can be money too. How, what role does money play in your life, in your consciousness? Is it the driving force of what you do? On the 21st, we have the solstice energy, Sun going into Capricorn. So you have this more in that third house. And maybe there's something that has to do with training, and you've been kind of like on and off again with it. And it has that financial component. So maybe you're picking up where you left off. Like if you have been taking some kind of training that you pay in payments, and you suspended the payments, and now you're going back. Like, for instance, when I was going to study to be a meditation teacher, and I put down a down payment, and I started taking the course, and then I kind of suspended it, and I'm still like, oh, I should get back into that. So if that were me, I would be doing something similar to that. On the 28th, Jupiter goes into Pisces. So Jupiter is going to go into that area that Neptune is in, the fifth house. And actually, Jupiter and Neptune actually Jupiter and Pisces have a connection there. So it's very, very consistent. Jupiter is very positive, and it's, like optimistic. It's also very expansive, growth oriented. Sometimes overdoing it, so overly indulgent or overly optimistic. But in the fifth house, it can give you more opportunities for love to come into your life. So if you're single, this can be a godsend, because you might feel like, hey, I've had this drought, and now all of a sudden I'm having all these potential partners come into my life. And it can also make you more optimistic about love itself. If you have been a little bit cynical, because with Neptune here, like I said, it has been retrograde, and that can make a person, I don't know about jaded, but at least questioning some of their experiences and beliefs. And so that can be that can be a relief to have Jupiter here, because it's like Santa Claus. And like I said before, this is a house of pleasure. So it can be just fun things that Scorpio feels like you're always, maybe parties and theater, concerts, Why would this be the case now? Well, it could even be connected to a love interest or love affairs that you are getting taken out, wined and dined, a night out on the town, who knows? And this carries you into 2022. And if you're an artist, it can make you prolific. So that's what I have for you, Scorpio. I hope that this resonated with you. And if you would like a private reading, I do have double readings that I'm promoting because they are a value in terms of the price, because since you're getting two, you get a discount. And I also get to go into greater depth, so that's what I personally like about it. I tried to do the more truncated, shortened versions, and I just couldn't do it anymore because I had done so many of the other ones. It just felt weird, so I just said, no, I can't do those short ones. But if you just prefer like analysis, I do have single readings too. So, I mean, I got a whole list of readings, and you can find it out on rainandmoonastrology.com. The link is below. Thank you for listening. Have a great month. Take care. Bye.